Some people build lives. Others just know how to wreck them. I learned the difference when my wife packed a suitcase full of my money and her lingerie to go save another man. She thought I was breaking. She thought I would stand in the ruins of our marriage and beg her to come back. She was wrong. I don't beg. I build. And for 15 days, while she was playing savior in California, I was pouring the foundation for a new life, one she would never be a part of. If you've ever felt like you couldn't move forward, like the damage was too great, then you need to hear the rest of the story. My name is Ethan Hayes. I'm 41, and I'm a senior project manager for one of the largest commercial construction firms in Austin, Texas. For the last 20 years, I've built the things that change a city's skyline. Shopping centers, office towers, sprawling apartment complexes. My projects are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. My salary is just south of $400,000 a year. I earn it standing in the scorching Texas sun, in freezing winter rains, and under deadlines that would crush most people. I work hard. It's what I do. My wife, Chloe, worked from home, running a social media marketing business. In a good year, she might clear $80,000. Our daughter, Maya, had just turned 16. We've been married for 17 years, together for 20. I mention the money not to brag, but because it's the foundation of the story. It's what was at stake. Everything I earned, I poured into our life. The mortgage on the house I designed and helped build in Westlake Hills. The $30,000 a year tuition for Maya's private school. The capital for Chloe's business ventures. The vacations. The retirement plan that was supposed to let us both breathe by the time we were 50. On paper, we were the Austin dream. Friends called us solid. Our family said we were the model to follow. But behind closed doors, there were cracks. I thought they were small. The kind you patch up and forget about. But a crack in concrete, if you ignore it, it grows. It spiders. It compromises the whole structure. I just didn't realize how deep the fracture ran until I walked into her bedroom and saw her packing that suitcase. It was a Friday afternoon. I'd just come from a site inspection for a new tech campus downtown. A $300 million project. I was covered in a fine layer of dust. My boots heavy with dried mud. I opened the front door expecting the usual scene. Chloe at her immaculate desk in the front room. Maya lost in homework at the kitchen island. Maybe the smell of dinner starting. Instead, the house was quiet. I found Chloe in our bedroom. An open suitcase on the bed. At first, nothing seemed wrong. She took short business trips sometimes, meeting with clients. But this felt different. She wasn't just throwing in blouses and slacks. She was curating, selecting each piece with a kind of deliberate care, like she was staging a display. And then I saw it. Tucked between a silk blouse and a pair of jeans was a red dress. The one I bought her for our anniversary last year. The one I'd never seen her wear. Next to it, a small satin bag holding lingerie I didn't recognize. My gut tightened. This wasn't a business trip. Where are you going? I asked from the doorway. She didn't look up. She was focused on folding a cashmere sweater. Leo needs me. The name hit me like a physical blow. Leo, her college boyfriend. I hadn't heard his name in over a decade. Apparently, they had reconnected on Instagram a few months back. His wife had left him. He was, in her words, going through a hard time. And according to Chloe, she was the only person on earth who could save him. He's in a really dark place. Ethan, she said, finally looking at me. Her expression was already defensive. Brace for a fight. He's not himself. He needs a friend. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. My work shirt felt stiff and gritty against my skin. And you pack lingerie to go help a friend? Her head snapped up, her eyes flashing. Don't make this something it's not. He needs someone who gets him. Someone who can hold space for his pain. And that someone is you? I asked. My voice dangerously calm. Yes, she said, her chin lifting. We have a history. I know how his mind works. I can talk him through this. Before I could answer, Maya appeared in the hallway behind me. Her eyes, so much like mine, were narrowed with the fierce, uncomplicated righteousness of a 16-year-old. Dad, leave her alone. Mom is just trying to do something good for someone who's hurting. You always make everything about you. Chloe's face softened, a wave of relief washing over her. Her backup had arrived. See? Even Maya understands. This is a problem with our marriage. Ethan, you don't trust me. You're always at work. You're never emotionally available. I wanted to ask if she considered the conversation we had just last night about the plans for the new deck and emotional connection. But I knew her answer. She would call it a transaction. Just another project. Maya crossed her arms. A perfect mirror of her mother's defiant posture. Mom deserves to have friends. You can't just keep her locked up in this house like it's a prison. A prison. The house I bled for. The house I framed with my own hands before the contractors came in. I looked from my wife to my daughter, and a cold clarity washed over me. This wasn't a spontaneous conversation. They had rehearsed this. They had planned their arguments, prepared their accusations. Every trap, every guilt trip, was laid out before I even stepped through the door. I held the silence, letting it stretch until Chloe was the one who had to look away. Then I spoke. My voice even. Okay. She blinked. What? Okay. I repeated. Go. Go help Leo. Take all the time you need. 2 weeks. You said. 15 days. She corrected. Her voice uncertain. This wasn't in her script. She was expecting a fight. Yelling. Maybe me forbidding her to go so she could paint me as a controlling husband. Are you really okay with this? She asked, studying my face, searching for the trap. I gave her the simplest, most powerful weapon I had. I trust you. Chloe. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. If you say he needs you, then go help him. Maya looked disappointed. The big dramatic scene she was ready for had just fizzled out. Chloe, though still suspicious, couldn't argue without revealing her own guilt. She zipped the suitcase shut with a sharp, final sound. I carried the bag out to her car, a white Volvo XC60 I'd bought for her last Christmas. I placed it in the trunk, then turned to her. I kissed her on the forehead. A dry, meaningless gesture. Drive safe, I said. I stood in the driveway and watched as she backed out, her brake lights flashing once before she turned onto the street and disappeared. She was probably wondering why I hadn't fought, why I had given in so easily. She didn't know that I had already seen the credit card statements. For the last 2 months, there were charges I didn't recognize. Dinners for 2 at expensive restaurants in Malibu, toll road charges from up and down the Pacific Coast Highway, and a $2,000 charge from a lingerie boutique in Beverly Hills. That definitely did not have a branch in our house. She had already been seeing him. This 15-day trip wasn't a mission of mercy. It was an affair moving into its next phase. She thought she was leaving me behind for 15 days. She had no idea she was giving me the one thing I needed most, a head start. As she drove west toward the California coast, I got in my truck and drove downtown. My company's corporate lawyer, a man who handled billion-dollar contracts, also had a partner who specialized in family law. A very sharp, very expensive partner. By the time our meeting was over, the sun was setting over the Austin Hills, and we had a plan, a blueprint. For the first 3 days, Chloe played her part perfectly. She sent texts to check in, each one carefully crafted to sound wholesome, almost noble. Made sure Leo ate something today. He's finally opening up. We're watching movies to keep his mind off things. He's doing a little better. I replied with single words. Good. Okay. Great. On day 4. The text stopped, but her Instagram didn't. She had forgotten that she taught Maya how to navigate social media. And Maya, in a moment of teenage rebellion a year ago, had shown me how to view someone's stories without them knowing you'd seen them. Chloe's stories were a highlight reel of everything she wasn't telling me. Sunrise walks on Santa Monica Beach, breakfast at an ocean view cafe, a man's watch visible on the wrist of the person holding the camera, a gym selfie. Well, it was Leo's gym selfie, but I could see Chloe's reflection in the mirror behind him, wearing new workout clothes. Grief, apparently, looked a lot like a vacation. On day 5, I started to move. I had my paycheck redirected to a new personal bank account. I removed her as an authorized user on my credit cards. I changed the beneficiary on my life insurance policy, and my 401k from Chloe to a trust for Maya, with my brother named as a trustee until she turned 25. Every change was documented. Every move was calculated. I wasn't reacting emotionally. I was building my exit. On day 6, something on my banking app caught my eye. A $10,000 transfer from our joint home equity line of credit. It was made 2 weeks before her mission of mercy. The memo line read, "Deposit for marketing conference." There was no conference. I called a friend of mine who owns a major materials supply company, one of Chloe's biggest clients. He hadn't heard of any conference, But he did mention that Chloe had been distracted lately, missing deadlines, and her work had been sloppy. That's when I hired a forensic accountant. I wanted a complete financial picture before she came home. What he found made my blood run cold. It wasn't just the 10,000. Chloe had been quietly moving smaller amounts for months. 500 here, 300 there, always disguised under plausible expenses, client dinners, software subscriptions, online courses. The total came to another $8,000, $18,000, siphoned from our family's finances to support her ex-boyfriend's lifestyle in California, while I was running a multi-million-dollar project in the brutal Texas heat to keep our family comfortable. This wasn't just a betrayal of our marriage. This was theft. And now I had the receipts. By the end of that first week, my lawyer had everything drafted. The divorce petition, a custody motion that would give me primary physical custody of Maya, with Chloe getting reasonable visitation, a property settlement agreement that was to tail down to the individual assets. I wasn't just responding to an affair. I was systematically dismantling every legal and financial connection that gave her access to my life. Meanwhile, Maya was running her own quiet campaign at home. She'd send me texts, using language that was so unlike her. "You're being really passive-aggressive, Dad." When I'd ask what she meant, she'd shoot back, "You know what I mean. You're making Mom feel guilty for having emotions." What emotions? I thought. The emotion of spending my money on another man? But I didn't push. I knew teenagers talked. And in our neighborhood, the parents talked even more. By Friday, the story of Chloe's brave decision to help a dear old friend in crisis had spread through the private school parent network. Brave. That was one word for it. I just documented everything. Bank statements, screenshots, timestamps. By the time Chloe's car was due to pull back into the driveway, I was ready for anything she could possibly say. I had spent 15 days not falling apart, but building a case as solid as concrete and steel. Day 15. I was in my home office, reviewing blueprints for the new downtown campus, when I heard the crunch of tires on the gravel driveway. The sound was different from my truck. Lighter. It was her Volvo. A moment later, the front door opened, and the click of her heels echoed on the hardwood floors I'd installed myself a decade ago. "Ethan!" She called out. Her voice was bright, airy, the voice of someone returning from a resort, not a crisis. She appeared in the doorway of my office. She was glowing. Her skin was tanned. Her blonde hair had fresh highlights, and she was wearing a new sundress I'd never seen before. She looked rested, happy. She looked like a woman who had just spent 2 weeks falling back in love. "How was it?" I asked, leaning back in my chair, keeping my expression neutral. That was all the prompting she needed. She launched into a perfectly rehearsed monologue about Leo's fragile mental state, about how she had pulled him back from the brink, about how meaningful it was to help someone in their darkest hour. Every word was polished, practiced, probably on the long drive back from California to Austin. She painted herself as a saint, a healer. When she finished, breathless and self-satisfied, I just nodded. "Dinner's at 7. I said. "Your parents are coming. So are mine." Her smile froze. The healthy glow on her face seemed to dim. "Tonight, Ethan. I'm exhausted from the drive. Can't we just order in?" 7. I repeated, my voice leaving no room for negotiation. I turned back to my blueprints. A clear dismissal. She stood in the doorway for a long moment, confused. This wasn't the welcome home she had envisioned. She didn't know that this dinner wasn't a celebration. It was a demolition. And the crew was already on its way. By 7 o'clock, the table was set. Chloe had changed into something more conservative. A navy blue dress clearly intended to make her look respectable for her parents. Her father still thought she was a marketing prodigy. Her mother wanted to believe Chloe's lifestyle was funded by her own success, not my sweat. My parents were quiet, observant. They knew something was wrong. They had seen the cracks in our foundation long before I was willing to admit they existed. Dinner started politely enough. Small talk about Maya's finals, the brutal summer heat, my project downtown. I steered the conversation, letting everyone settle in, letting the wine get poured. I watched Chloe across the table. She was playing the role of the devoted wife, asking me about my day, laughing at her father's jokes. The performance was flawless. Then, halfway through the main course, she did exactly what I knew she would. She cleared her throat, placed her napkin on the table, and made her announcement. Well, I have some news for everyone. Maya, sitting next to me, gave a small, knowing smile. She wasn't on it. I'm pregnant, Chloe said, her eyes shining, looking directly at me. Her mother gasped, her hand flying to her chest. Chloe, honey, that's wonderful. Oh, Ethan, a baby. What a blessing. I took a slow sip of water. I placed the glass down with a soft click that seemed to echo in the sudden quiet. I looked at my wife, then at her parents, then at mine. It's not mine, I said. The words were clean, sharp, and they cut the celebration to pieces. The room froze. The color drained from Chloe's face. Ethan, don't, she whispered, her voice trembling. It's Leo's. I continued, my voice calm and steady. Her father pushed his chair back, his knuckles white where he gripped the edge of the table. What the hell are you talking about? He boomed. Chloe started to stammer. Dad, I can explain. It's complicated. No, it's not, I said, pulling out my phone. It's actually very simple. I didn't yell. I didn't raise my voice. I presented the evidence as if I were in a project meeting. Laying out facts, I showed them the screenshots of her Instagram stories from California, the credit card statements with charges from Malibu restaurants, the timeline that proves she had been with him for months, long before her mercy mission. Then I moved on to the finances. I showed them the $18,000 she had moved from our accounts. The forensic accountant's report was neat, clear, and damning. No one was eating anymore. Chloe's mother started to cry. Quiet, heartbroken sobs. Her father looked like he wanted to punch a hole in the wall. My parents just sat there, their eyes fixed on me, waiting. And Maya? Maya was staring down at her plate, her jaw tight, her face pale. The carefully constructed world her mother had built for her was collapsing in real time. Chloe reached a hand across the table, her eyes pleading. Ethan, please, we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can. Get out, I said. The words were quiet, but they had the force of a wrecking ball. This is my house, too, she hissed, her voice cracking. No, I said, shaking my head slowly. It's not. From the folder beside my chair, I pulled out a copy of the deed to the house. This property is in my name, solely. I bought the land before we were married. Your name isn't on the title. It's not on the mortgage. The only major asset with your name on it is the Volvo. You can have the car. I looked her dead in the eye. I've already packed your things. Your bags are in the garage. Her father stood up, the legs of his chair scraping against the floor. We're leaving, he said, his voice thick with shame and fury. He grabbed Chloe's arm. She tried to argue, but he cut her off, pulling her toward the door. Maya didn't move. She didn't even look up as her mother was led out of the room. The front door slammed shut. In the ringing silence, I picked up my knife and fork. I calmly cut another piece of steak and ate it. For the first time in months, I felt a wave of profound, absolute peace. The demolition was complete. The next morning, I was up before the sun, a mug of coffee in my hand, going over a final checklist. Change the locks, update the security codes, separate the last of the joint utility bills. Every loose end was being tied off. By 8 a.m., I was in my truck, driving to the suburb where Chloe's sister lived. I knew she would have spent the night there. I parked on the street, walked up to the front door, and rang the bell. Chloe answered, dressed in borrowed pajamas. Her eyes were swollen from crying. Ethan, she started. I handed her an envelope. You've been served, I said. It was the divorce petition. She tore it open, her eyes scanning the legal language. You've already done all this? I did it while you were in California, I told her. My lawyer's name and number are on the last page. Don't call me. Call him. Behind her, her sister hovered awkwardly in the hallway, refusing to meet my eyes. By noon, Chloe's social media was on fire. She posted a long, vague story about emotional abuse, about her journey of self-discovery, about making brave choices for her own happiness. The location tag was a gym in Malibu. Leo's gym. She hadn't yet realized that I had been documenting everything for weeks, and she was about to learn that in the world I lived in, receipts speak louder than hashtags. I started with her family. They got the full package first. The bank records showing the money transfers, the screenshots of her texts with Leo, going back months. The photos from California. I laid out a timeline that proved the pregnancy could only have happened during her mission of mercy. Her father didn't call me, but word got back through a mutual friend. He had cut her off completely. Her mother tried to play mediator, but her sympathy vanished after I forwarded her a text chain where Chloe referred to her parents as walking ATMs with too many opinions. Next were her clients. Austin isn't a small town, but the business community is tighter than people think. My friend with the material supply company saw the evidence and terminated her contract immediately. Others followed. It turns out, it's bad for business when your social media manager gets caught publicly lying on social media. By the end of the week, Chloe's income had evaporated. The followers who once liked her inspirational quotes were now filling her comments section with words like liar and homewrecker. She had tried to build a brand based on authenticity and connection. I dismantled it using nothing but the truth, and I was just getting started. Leo disappeared exactly 6 days after Chloe told him she was pregnant. 6 days. She must have driven back to California thinking they were going to start a life together. Decorate a nursery. Pick out names. Playhouse. Instead, he met her at a coffee shop on the Pacific Coast Highway. A public place. Lots of witnesses. An easy exit. He told her he wasn't ready. He told her his ex-wife was considering taking him back. He told her the last few months had been a mistake. Then he blocked her number, changed his gym schedule, and set his Instagram to private. The fantasy she had wrecked her life for dissolved over a lukewarm latte. 2 days later, my phone rang. Chloe's name flashed on the screen. I answered. He left me. Ethan. She sobbed. I'm pregnant, and I'm all alone. How can you be so cold? Practice, I said, and hung up. An hour after that, she was at my house. Maya was at school. I'd been expecting this. I'd already had the locks changed. She stood on the porch, ringing the bell over and over. I finally opened the door a few inches, the security chain still in place. Please, she said, her face a mess of tears and desperation. I made a mistake. No, Chloe. I corrected her, my voice flat. You made a series of choices over a period of months. You took money from our home. You got pregnant with another man's child. You gambled everything on him. And he folded. Her face crumpled. But I have nowhere to go. That sounds like a problem you should have considered before you packed your lingerie, I said. I didn't let her in. I closed the door, leaving her to cry on the porch until she finally drove away. That afternoon, Maya came home from school. She saw her mother's Volvo pulling away from the corner. She came inside, her expression guarded. Was Mom here? Yes, I said. She wanted to talk. Maya didn't ask what about. She just nodded, dropped her bag, and went to her room. That night, over dinner, she was the one who brought it up. Mom keeps texting me, she said, pushing a piece of broccoli around her plate. She says you blocked her and that you're trying to turn me against her. I put my fork down. Maya, you're smart enough to make up your own mind. But you need to remember something. People show you who they are with their actions. Family doesn't get a free pass on that. She didn't respond right away. Then, quietly, she said, she told me Leo was the father. I didn't believe her at first. I thought she was just trying to hurt you. She finally looked up at me, her young face looking old with disillusionment. I believe her now, and I'm not on her side anymore. It wasn't a moment for celebration. It wasn't a victory. It was just the first sign that the truth, solid and unyielding, was beginning to matter more to my daughter than the narrative her mother was trying to spin. It didn't take long for Chloe to find a new distraction. 3 months after Leo vanished, she met a personal trainer from a gym in a trendy part of town. Another muscular, savior type. Within weeks, she was posting gym selfies with him, tagging locations as if they were on a world tour. Maya didn't comment, but she watched. So did I. In 2 months, the trainer was gone, and Chloe was pregnant again. This time, there wasn't even the pretense of a committed relationship. Her parents stepped in temporarily, paying her rent and buying baby supplies. But they weren't fooled. Her mother called me one evening, her voice low and ashamed. I don't know what to do with her, Ethan. She keeps making the same mistakes. I offered no sympathy. You can't save someone who doesn't want to be saved. By the time the second baby was born, Chloe was living in a small apartment, surviving on handouts from her parents. No steady income. No partner. Just two children from two different men who wanted nothing to do with her. The pattern wasn't new. It was just finally visible to everyone. 7 months into her second pregnancy, Chloe showed up at my office building downtown. The security guard at the front desk called up to me. "Sir, there's a woman down here with a baby. Says she's your wife." "Ex-wife." I corrected him. "Is she making a scene?" "No, sir. Just crying." "Then please escort her out." The next day, she came back. And the day after that. Finally, I went down. She was a wreck. Her hair was unwashed. Her clothes were stained. The first baby was fussing in a second-hand carrier. And her belly was huge with the second. "Ethan, please," she said. Her face streaked with tears. "I need help." "No," I said. "These babies are Maya's brothers." She pleaded, her voice rising. "She deserves to know them. Maya doesn't want to know you, let alone them. I could die." "Ethan," she sobbed. "I could die in childbirth. We all could," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "That's not my problem to solve." She started crying harder then, turning heads in the lobby. I let her weep until she was exhausted. Then I said, clearly and evenly, "You traded a $400,000 a year life and a stable home for Instagram moments with men who wouldn't be responsible for you. You made your choice. Live with it." And I went back upstairs. That night, Maya walked into the kitchen while I was cooking. She was holding her phone. The screen lit up. "Mom posted about you," she said, her voice flat. Chloe's Facebook status read, "My ex-husband is heartless. He won't help me or his own children's siblings. He's moved on like our vows meant nothing." Maya didn't hesitate. Right there in front of me, she typed out a comment. "A heartless man is one you cheat on for months, steal his money, and get pregnant by another man. Then expect him to raise a baby. The rest is just consequences." She hit post. 15 minutes later, the post was gone. Chloe had deleted it, but not before enough people had seen it, and the screenshot Maya took would ensure it never truly disappeared. By the end of the week, the story had rippled through our circles. Friends of friends, business associates, even parents from Maya's school. Everyone now understood that there were glaring holes in Chloe's tearful narrative. She wanted pity. Instead, she got silence. The kind of silence that's colder and heavier than outright criticism, and much harder to escape. And it was a silence she had built for herself. While Chloe's life was imploding online, mine was moving forward. I had started seeing someone. Arise Thorne. She was a structural engineer I'd met through the downtown project. At first, it was just coffee to go over load calculations and site plans. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into breakfast. One afternoon, Arise dropped off a revised set of blueprints of the house. Maya was homesick from school. When I got back from the site, I found the two of them at the kitchen table, deep in conversation about architectural software and design programs. They had been talking for 2 hours. After Arise left, Maya looked at me. "She's smart," she said. "Not like mom smart, where she just wants you to think she is. Like, actually smart." It wasn't just an observation. There was relief in her voice. She had seen the difference between someone who builds things and someone who breaks them. For the first time in a long time, the house felt stable. No hidden agendas. No whispered fights. Just calm. Chloe eventually heard about Arise. Austin is a big city, but news travels fast in our circles. Her reaction came in the form of 17 text messages, each one more frantic and accusatory than the last. I didn't answer a single one. But Chloe didn't stop at texts. She started showing up at Maya's school events. A rowing regatta, the science fair, the winter formal, always with the first baby on her hip, looking exhausted and desperate, her belly already swelling with a third pregnancy from yet another short-lived romance. At first, Maya just ignored her, walking the other way without a word. But after the winter formal, she came home visibly angry. "She's trying to guilt-trip me," Maya said, throwing her bag on the floor, telling me I'm abandoning her. "Is it working?" I asked. "No. It's annoying. She chose that baby over our family. Now that it's hard, she wants sympathy. She made her bed. Tell her that," I said. "I did," Maya replied. She cried. I walked away. I could see it in her face. She wasn't just defending herself. She was drawing a boundary. The kind that, once set, doesn't move. Chloe thought her public appearances would win Maya back. Instead, every encounter just pushed her further away. The news of Chloe's third pregnancy didn't come from her. It came from her mother, who called me one evening in tears. "She's done it again, Ethan," she said, her voice strained. She met some guy online, another fitness trainer. He moved in after 3 weeks. She was pregnant into months, and now he's gone. I leaned back in my office chair, looking out at the city lights. "What do you want me to do?" "Nothing." Her father said the first grandbaby was his charity case for her foolishness. This time she's on her own. And they meant it. They cut her off completely. No more money for rent, for groceries, for the kids. It didn't take long for the panic to set in. A week later, she was at my office building again. This time with the first child on her hip and a belly that told the whole story. "I'm desperate, Ethan," she said, blocking the doorway as I tried to leave for lunch. "These are your daughter's siblings, not my responsibility," I said, stepping around her. She yelled something at my back, but I didn't turn around. The elevator doors closed, sealing a distance I intended to maintain forever. She didn't give up. She started waiting outside the building during my lunch hour, cornering me on the sidewalk. The first child was clinging to her shoulder, wide-eyed, her other hand resting on her swollen stomach. "You can't just walk away from this, Ethan," she pleaded. "These kids are family." I stopped one day and looked her straight in the eye. "Family isn't just blood, Chloe. It's action. And your actions have burned every bridge you ever had." Her voice got louder, laced with a theatrical desperation. "I could die in childbirth. What will you tell Maya then?" "The same thing I'll tell her now," I said, my voice cold and hard. "That you chose this. Twice. 3 times. And you expected someone else to clean it up for you." She started crying harder, drawing looks from people walking by. "I didn't care. You made these choices because you wanted what you wanted in the moment. I'm not the one who's going to save you from the bill." Then I walked away, leaving her standing there with one child born and another on the way, with no audience left to applaud her performance. That night, Chloe tried a new tactic: social media. She posted a long, tear-streaked selfie video. The caption was about being abandoned by a man who swore he would love her through anything, left to raise his children's siblings alone while he started a new family with another woman. It didn't take long for Maya to see it. She walked into the living room, phone in hand. "You need to read this." I scanned the post and handed the phone back. "Do you want me to reply?" She shook her head. "Already handled it." Her comment was still at the top. "Maybe he wouldn't have left if you hadn't cheated on him for months, stolen his money, and had 2 kids with 2 other men. Just a thought." Within an hour, Chloe had deleted the post. But like before, the screenshots were already circulating. The people who mattered knew the truth. The rest could draw their own conclusions. Chloe wanted sympathy. All she got was silence. Or worse for her, a blunt reminder of the very truth she was trying so desperately to rewrite. While Chloe was trying to salvage her image, Maya's future was taking shape. After her long talks about engineering with Aris, she applied to MIT on a whim. I still remember the day the thick, official envelope arrived. Maya stood in the kitchen, her hands shaking as she tore it open. "Full scholarship," she whispered. Then she looked up at me, her eyes wide. "Dad, I got in." I pulled her into a hug, feeling a surge of pride stronger than anything I'd ever felt on a construction site. Aris was beaming right behind me, telling Maya she knew it all along. Chloe found out through the grapevine and sent me a text. "A daughter needs her mother for things like this." I didn't reply. Maya didn't want her, and I wasn't going to override that. Instead, we started making plans. A dorm room near the campus in Boston for the fall. A summer trip to help her get settled. For the first time in years, every conversation in our house was about building something new, not fixing what was broken. Chloe's chaos felt like it was in another universe, and that's exactly where I intended to keep it. A month after Maya's acceptance letter arrived, I asked Therese to marry me. Nothing fancy, just the 2 of us on the back deck at sunset, over a bottle of wine, with the smell of fresh cedar from the new pergola I'd just finished building. She said yes without hesitation, and when Maya found out, she hugged Therese first, then me. "You're making me your best man, right?" she asked, only half joking. "Wouldn't have it any other way," I said. Chloe heard about the engagement within days. Austin might be big, but gossip travels at the speed of light. She unleashed a barrage of messages from numbers I didn't recognize. The same rehashed arguments about how it was too soon. How Maya needed stability. How sacred our marriage vows were. I replied once. You broke those vows years ago. The day you packed that suitcase for California. Then I blocked every number she used. Aris and I started planning a small wedding. Maya helped pick the venue. Every step of the process was calm. Joyful. It was everything my first wedding hadn't been. For the first time in what felt like a decade, the future felt like my own again. Planning the wedding with Aris and Maya was a world away from my first experience. There were no power struggles. No hidden agendas. Just three people making decisions together and actually enjoying it. Maya took her best man duties seriously. She chose her own outfit, a custom navy suit with a silver tee, and then started working on a speech that she insisted neither of us could hear until the day of. Chloe, of course, tried to insert herself. Word got back to me through mutual acquaintances that she was asking around about the date, the venue, if children were allowed. I didn't have to guess her plan. Show up uninvited. Cause a scene. And attempt to flip the narrative in public. It was Maya who shut it down. She's not coming. Dad, don't even tell her when it is. And that settled it. We kept the guest list small and the location known only to those who needed to know. Chloe could continue to invent her story online. The real story, our story, was about to take a major step forward. And she wouldn't be anywhere near it. The morning of the wedding was quiet. Almost peaceful. The venue, a small vineyard in the hill country outside Austin, was bathed in soft light. Aris was getting ready in a side cabin with her sister. I was in the main house with Maya, who was pacing in the kitchen, muttering her speech under her breath. You're planning to make everyone cry, aren't you? I asked. That's the plan, she said with a grin. The guests started to arrive. Close friends, family, the people who had stood by us through every storm. There was no drama, no unexpected faces. The ceremony itself was simple. As Aris walked toward me, the sunlight catching in her dark hair, I realized I wasn't just marrying her. I was closing the last open wound of my past. Maya stood beside me, solid as a rock, smiling as she handed me the ring. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, the applause felt like more than a celebration. It felt like validation. It was the universe saying, you made it. You built something better. Chloe never knew the time, the place, or the vows that replaced the ones she had shattered. After dinner, as the lights in the vineyard barn dimmed, Maya walked up to the small stage. She didn't look nervous. She looked resolute, confident. She adjusted the microphone and smiled at Aris and me. My father builds skyscrapers. She began. He creates things from dirt and steel that touch the sky. But the greatest project he ever built was her family. After someone tried to tear it down, the room went silent. My dad taught me that a strong foundation is made of respect, integrity, and consequences. And if you build it right, it can withstand an earthquake. A lump formed in my throat. Aris squeezed my hand. Maya looked directly at me. Thank you for not breaking. Thank you for showing me what strength looks like. Not loud or violent, but steady. And thank you, she said, her voice catching slightly as she turned to Aris, for choosing the person who chose us back. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. When she came down from the stage, I hugged her so tight she laughed. That speech didn't just close a chapter. It sealed it. There was nothing left for Chloe to distort. Nothing left for her to take. We were a new family, built on a foundation of truth. We had no plans to tell Chloe about the wedding, but social media did it for us. A week later, she saw the photos posted by an acquaintance. Aris in her dress, Maya in her suit, me with a ring on my finger. That night, the email started, and the texts from strange numbers, even a handwritten letter that showed up in my mailbox. All of them were variations on the same theme. I was replacing her, erasing our history, damaging Maya. Maya read the letter before I did. She actually laughed. She really thinks this is all about her, doesn't she? She said, handing it back. Then again, in her mind, everything is. I asked if she wanted me to respond. Why waste the postage? She said. So I didn't. Chloe had forfeited her right to be part of our big moments a long time ago. The wedding just made it final. She could watch from the outside if she wanted, but the view would never change. She was no longer in the picture. Chloe's lawyer finally sent their counter-proposal. Alimony. Half of my savings. A claim on the West Lake Hills house, which I bought before we even met. I was sitting in my office, The Pacific Ocean stretching out beyond the glass. No, not the Pacific. The Gulf of Mexico. It felt just as vast. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just staggered by how far she was willing to push her delusion. I thought about all the years I'd come home covered in dust. My muscles screaming. Also, she could post pictures of herself in dresses she didn't pay for. Now she wanted to break that life into pieces and walk away with the best parts. My lawyer barely glanced at the document before shaking his head. The prenup holds. We reject. I was stunned. She wasn't negotiating for survival. She was negotiating for her pride. And it was making her reckless. And reckless people don't care who gets hurt, as long as they feel like they've won. That night, Maya found me out on the deck. Mom called. She said. Her voice flat. She said you're trying to erase her from my life. I looked at her. Do you believe that? Maya didn't even blink. I was there. Dad. I remember everything. She erased herself. 16 years old. And she spoke with a clarity I had only just found in my 40s. We sat in silence, watching the tide come in. The air was cool and steady. No storms. No shouting. Just peace. In that quiet, I realized Maya wasn't just surviving her mother's chaos. She was studying it, learning exactly who not to be. That, perhaps, was the only gift Chloe ever gave her. 2 days later, Chloe posted a long caption on Instagram about healing from narcissistic abuse and toxic control. The comments were full of supportive strangers. Aris showed it to me at breakfast. She's fishing for sympathy, she said. And it works. On people who don't know the story. By evening, one of my former clients sent me a screenshot. Someone had posted court records and photos in her comment section. Public opinion shifted fast. Supporters became skeptics. Skeptics went silent. Chloe deleted the post. But the internet remembers. Every lie leaves a footprint. And she had been walking barefoot in wet cement for years. A week later, Maya played a voicemail for me at dinner. Chloe's voice was trembling. I'm in the hospital from stress. My father doesn't care if I live or die. Maya rolled her eyes. She posted a gym selfie the same day. Aris didn't look up from her plate. Some people use truth. Others use filters. It wasn't the lies that angered me. It was the intent. Chloe wasn't just distorting facts. She was weaponizing sympathy. In her mind, anyone who was immune to it wasn't protecting themselves. They were the villains in her script. One afternoon, I got an email from a woman in Oregon. She claimed she'd met Chloe in a single mom's Facebook group and was considering helping her financially, but decided to check her out first. I Googled her. She wrote, "Your name kept coming up. I think I found the truth." It was surreal. Chloe's chaos had crossed state lines, reaching strangers I would never meet. I replied politely, thanked her for reaching out, and advised her to keep her money. When I showed Aris, she just shook her head, still trying to find a stage. Even in exile. By late spring, Chloe's usual tricks weren't working. The dramatic posts, the sympathy-seeking calls, the promises to change. Nothing was landing. Her audience had either blocked her or saw right through her. It was like watching a quarterback with no playbook, just running in circles, hoping something would stick. I wasn't rooting for her to fail. I just wasn't invested in her success. She had chosen her path long before I stopped answering her calls. And the further I got from her noise, the more I realized that peace isn't something you beg for. It's something you build, brick by brick, until the wall is high enough to keep the chaos out. A subcontractor from a past project stopped by to drop off some materials. In the middle of our conversation, he hesitated. Hey, so your ex-wife applied to do social media for my wife's boutique. I kept my tone level. I wish her the best. He gave an awkward laugh. My wife Googled her. Found the court documents. We decided to go with another candidate. I told Aris that night. She poured a glass of wine and said, she's running out of rooms to walk into. And she was right. Chloe wasn't just broke. She was running out of places where she could pretend she wasn't. At a construction industry dinner, a colleague leaned over. I think I saw your ex at a hotel bar in Galveston last month. Different guy every night. I just smiled. Networking. I'm sure. It didn't matter if it was true. What mattered was the realization that her world had shrunk to transactions and borrowed attention. My world was expanding. A new contract for a development on the coast. A stable home. A thriving daughter. 2 paths. Both chosen. One was built to last. And one was destined to collapse. Out of the blue, Chloe's lawyer sent in a mail. She wanted one last settlement offer before taking things to court. My lawyer replied with a single line. The prenuptial agreement is binding. Our position is unchanged. I didn't have to say a word. That night, Aris and I celebrated with takeout and a bottle of wine. It wasn't about the money. It was the confirmation that the retaining wall we built around our lives was holding strong. Chloe could throw herself against it all she wanted. She wasn't getting in. Maya aced her final exams and got an early acceptance into a summer internship program in Chicago with a top architectural firm. She texted me a picture of the acceptance letter before she told anyone else. I called her immediately. I'm proud of you, kid. Her voice was bright. It feels like I'm building my own life now. You know. She didn't mention her mother, and neither did I. We didn't have to. The absence of her name said more than any words could. By early summer, Chloe had gone quiet. No posts, no calls, no secondhand news through friends. It was as if she'd vanished. Aris noticed. Maybe it's really over now. I shrugged. She's never over. She just changes the stage. Whatever she was plotting next. It wasn't my concern. My life was to full. Aris's promotion at her firm. Maya's upcoming internship. The progress on our plans for a small beach house in Port Aransas. If Chloe wanted a stage, she was going to have to build it herself. And this time, I wouldn't even be in the audience. In early March, a mutual acquaintance sent me a link. Chloe had posted another update on Facebook. This time, it was a filtered selfie with a caption that read, "Raising 5 beautiful children on my own. Getting stronger every day. God gives his toughest battles to his strongest soldiers." There were 5 now. The math was staggering. The recklessness, breathtaking. The comments were sparse. A few generic, "You go, girl," replies from strangers. And then silence. Maya saw it too. She's still trying to sell a story nobody's buying, she said, scrolling past it without another word. I didn't react. Chloe's online persona had become its own echo chamber. No friends. No family. Just a handful of disconnected followers who didn't know the history. For Reese and me, there were bigger things to focus on. We were finalizing the interior design for the Port Aransas house, preparing for Maya's summer in New York, where her internship had been moved, and planning a trip to visit her in June. Chloe could keep broadcasting into the void if she wanted. For us, the signal was clear. We were moving forward, and we weren't looking back. June came quickly. Aris and I flew to New York to see Maya midway through her internship. She met us outside her firm's office in Midtown, wearing a hard hat and carrying a roll of blueprints under her arm. She looked like she belonged there. Confident. Focused. Already a part of the professional world she was chasing. That weekend, she took us on a tour of the project she was working on, a new residential tower, explaining structural details with the same passion I'd had in my 20s. Aris listened intently, asking the kind of questions only another engineer would know. I just watched. Proud. Over dinner at a small Italian restaurant in Brooklyn, Maya said, "This is what I want. Not just the work, but the life, the stability, the purpose. I never want to live like my mother." "You won't," I said. "You learned early what not to accept." She smiled and nodded. In that moment, I knew she wasn't just surviving the past. She was engineering a future her mother could never touch. When Maya's internship ended in August, she came back to Austin for a few weeks before her fall semester. She seemed even more confident, more sure of herself. Her stories at dinner were full of names and places that made it clear she was building her own network, her own life. One evening, we were sitting on the deck, watching the Texas sun bleed into the horizon. She leaned back in her chair. "You know, every time I come home now, it feels lighter. The air is different. That's because there's no one trying to set fires anymore," I said. Aris smiled gently. "You built a firewall, Ethan." I shook my head. "No, we did. All of us." Chloe was still out there somewhere. Dallas. Last I'd heard. Raising children with different last names. Posting half-truths online. But her universe no longer intersected with ours, and as the waves of heat shimmered off the pavement, I realized that was the greatest peace I could have hoped for. In September, Chloe tried to reassert her presence one more time. A video clip surfaced on a Dallas area community page. It was her, standing at a microphone at some single mother's empowerment event, giving a heavily edited version of her life story. In her version, she was the victim of a cold, controlling husband who had replaced her, and a daughter who had been turned against her with lies. There was no mention of the affairs, the stolen money, the pregnancies with men who vanished as soon as they appeared. A few comments praised her bravery. But it didn't take long for people who knew the real story to chime in. Screenshots of her old posts, photos from California, even Maya's public comment from years ago started appearing under the video. The next day, the clip was gone. Chloe, it seemed, had failed to realize that the internet never forgets, and neither do the people you burn. For us, it was nothing more than background noise. But for her, it was another door slamming shut. By October, Chloe had faded from our daily lives entirely. No calls, number texts, no unexpected appearances, just silence. Aris and I were absorbed in our work. She'd been promoted again, now overseeing multiple structural projects across the state, and I was managing a high-profile development in the domain. The house in Austin was our sanctuary on weekends, a place where the world felt far away. Maya was thriving in her sophomore year at MIT, balancing advanced coursework with a leadership role in 2 student engineering clubs. She started talking about grad school, maybe studying in Europe. During a video call with her one evening from the deck, she said, "It's amazing how much can change when you remove the wrong people from your life." Aris smiled. "It's not amazing, Maya. It's just making room for the right things." We ended the call with a sense of pride, not just in her accomplishments, but in the steady, unshakable life we had built. The kind of life Chloe could never touch, could never tear down. Late one Friday night in November, my phone buzzed with an email notification. The sender's name made my stomach clench for a split second, Chloe. I hadn't heard from her directly in over a year. The subject line read, "For closure." Reluctantly, I opened it. The message was short. "I'm sorry for everything. I know I can't change the past, but I hope one day you'll tell Maya that I tried." I stared at the screen for a moment, then closed the email without replying. Aris noticed my expression. "Chloe?" "Yeah," I said. Just words, the same ones she's written before. Aris nodded slowly. "Then they belong where they are. Behind you?" And that's exactly what I did. I didn't forward it to Maya. I didn't bring it up. Because closure doesn't come in an email written at midnight. It comes from knowing the fire has burned itself out, and you're standing somewhere it can no longer reach. That Thanksgiving was the first time Maya was able to come home from MIT for the whole week. She arrived late on a Saturday night, dropped her bags inside the door, and went straight to the kitchen, where Reese was pulling a pie out of the oven. "It smells like home in here," Maya said, giving her a hug. The week was easy. Long walks on the green belt in the mornings. Long dinners filled with laughter instead of tension. Quiet nights by the fireplace. No unwanted phone calls. No unexpected knocks at the door. On Thanksgiving Day, we set the table on the deck, with the hills as our backdrop. Midway through the meal, Maya looked up from her plate. "You know," she said, "I think this is the first holiday I can remember that has zero drama." I thought about it and nodded. "It's how it's supposed to be." She smiled. And in that moment, I knew that she would one day carry this version of family into her own life. The version we had fought to create. The version we would never let anyone destroy again. In early December, I was scrolling through LinkedIn when a familiar name popped up under people you may know. Chloe. She had updated her profile. Freelance social media consultant. Motivational speaker. The headline underneath read, "Helping women rise from the ashes of heartbreak." Curiosity won. And I clicked. Her feed was a curated mix of filtered selfies, vague inspirational quotes, and videos of her talking about overcoming toxic relationships. Not once did she acknowledge her own role in creating the chaos. Out of habit, I checked the comments section. It was mostly empty, save for a few generic, "So inspiring" messages from strangers. No family, no real friends. I closed the tab without engaging, not because I had nothing to say, but because I finally didn't need to. At dinner that night, Aris asked, "What are you thinking about?" I shook my head. "Nothing. Just glad that chapter is closed." And for the first time, I realized it wasn't just closed. It was sealed. Permanently. Maya arrived just before Christmas for her second winter break from it. She looked older. Somehow. Not in age, but in presence. More self-assured. She spent the first few days in the kitchen with Aris, catching up over coffee. They would fall into deep conversations about engineering projects and internships. I'd walk in and overhear a passage about load distribution or material tolerances and just smile. Maya wasn't just following in my footsteps. She was paving her own road. One afternoon, we took a long walk along the Barton Creek Trail. The air was crisp, the sun low in the sky. "You know," she said, kicking at a loose rock, "I don't really think about her anymore. It feels like a story I heard a long time ago. About someone else." "That's because it's not part of the life you're living now," I said. She nodded. "And I never wanted to be." Hearing that, I knew she had reached the same place I had years ago. The place where the past no longer has a claim on the future. We brought in the new year at our house in Austin. Just the three of us. Reese opened a bottle of champagne. Maya had sparkling cider. We stood on the deck, watching the fireworks scatter over the downtown skyline. "To building things at last," Reese said, raising her glass, "and to not letting anyone tear them down," Maya added. We clinked our glasses, and for a moment, the only sounds were the distant pop of colors in the sky. Later, by the fireplace, Maya pulled out her laptop and showed us a design she'd been working on. A concept for a sustainable high-rise project she wanted to pitch to a professor. Reese leaned in, offering feedback, her tone both proud and professional. I sat back and watched them. The life we had now wasn't loud or dramatic. It was solid, dependable, and exactly what I had wanted for years. And as midnight turned into morning, I knew there was nothing in the past worth trading for what I had right in front of me. In the middle of January, my phone lit up with an unknown number. Normally, I let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. "Ethan, it's Chloe." Her voice was thinner than I remembered. "I'm not calling to fight," she said quickly. I'm in trouble. I need help." I didn't ask what kind. It didn't matter. "Chloe, the last time I helped you, you used it to dig yourself into a deeper hole. I'm not doing it again. This isn't about me. It's about the kids. Those kids have fathers," I said. "I'm not one of them." There was a long silence. Then, "So that's it. That's it," I said. And I hung up. Reese, who had heard the end of the conversation, asked, "Are you okay?" "Better than okay," I said. That was the easiest no I've ever given. And I meant it. Now, whenever Chloe reached out, the weight was gone. The past no longer had its hooks in me. In early February, Maya called from Boston, her voice practically vibrating with barely contained excitement. "Dad, I just got accepted into a summer research program in Zurich. Fully funded. They only take 10 people from across the country." I couldn't help but grin. "That's incredible. Kid, do you know that puts you in the top 0.1%? Reese leaned over the speakerphone. "And you'll get to work on that sustainable design model you were so obsessed with." Maya laughed. "Exactly. This is going to open so many doors." After the call, Reese and I sat in silence for a moment. "There's no stopping her now," Reese said. "Nope," I agreed. "And the best part is, she built this herself." Chloe's chaos, her drama, her endless need for an audience seat was all a distant shadow compared to the bright, intentional path Maya was walking. And watching her reach this next milestone, I knew that whatever storms came, she would never be dragged back into the rubble her mother lived in. Late in February, Reese forwarded me a message she'd received through LinkedIn. It was from Chloe. It was packaged as a professional outreach, but at its core, it was the same old song. A claim that she had grown, a desire to reconnect for Maya's sake, an assertion that life was too short for grudges. Reese hadn't even bothered to reply. "She's fishing," she said, sliding the phone back across the table. When Maya heard about it at dinner that night, she just shook her head. "She's not trying to reconnect for me. She just hates that she doesn't control the narrative anymore." She was right. Every attempt Chloe made to insert herself back into our lives was less about love, and more about reclaiming a version of the story where she wasn't the architect of her own collapse. We didn't respond. We didn't acknowledge it. And for the first time, I realized that ignoring her wasn't just avoidance. It was an active protection of the life we had built, a life she had no part in forming. In early June, Maya was back in Austin for just 1 week before leaving for Zurich. The house was a flurry of preparation. Last-minute packing, final errands, Reese double-checking her travel documents. One evening, we had a small dinner on the deck, just the three of us. The sunset painted the sky in golds and pinks, and the air was thick with the scent of jasmine. Maya raised her glass of sparkling water. "2 new chapters," Aris smiled. And to not dragging the old ones with you. I watched them clink glasses, thinking how far we come from the chaos of years ago. Maya wasn't just leaving for Switzerland with a suitcase. She was leaving with a foundation stronger than anything I'd had at her age. Later that night, she gave me a tight hug. Thank you for not letting me grow up in her version of life. You built your own version. I said. I just made sure you had the space to do it. The next morning, we put her on that plane, proud and completely at peace. After Maya's flight took off for Zurich, the house felt unusually quiet. Aris and I stood in the kitchen, coffee mugs in hand, listening to the distant hum of the city. She's really gone this time, Aris said. Not sadly, just reflectively. Yeah, I replied. But she's running towards something, not away from it. Big difference. We filled the extra space with small projects. Aris redesigned the guest room into a library. I finally fixed the deck railing I'd been putting off for months. In the evenings, we cooked together, talking about our own future trips we wanted to take. Maybe buying a small place in the mountains for a winter getaway. Every so often, I'd glance at my phone, half expecting some drama from the past to intrude. But nothing ever came. No calls, number texts, no chaos. For the first time in what felt like a decade, life wasn't something we had to defend. It was something we could just live. And that was worth more than any noise we had left behind. In the middle of July, I was scrolling a local news site when a headline caught my eye. Dallas woman faces eviction amid financial dispute. The photo that accompanied it was unmistakable. It was Chloe, standing outside a rundown apartment building, a toddler on her hip and another child clinging to her leg. I didn't click the article. I didn't need to. I could already fill in the blanks. Unpaid rent, burned bridges, probably another failed relationship. When Aris got home, I mentioned it to her. She paused for a moment, then said, "That's sad. But it's not our problem." Exactly, I said. Hasn't been for a long time. We ate dinner that night with the sliding doors open, letting in the warm Texas air. There was no heaviness in it, no lingering sense of unfinished business. Whatever storm Chloe was weathering, it was no longer one we had to navigate. And I had no intention of ever stepping back into the water I'd fought so hard to escape. Late one evening, my phone lit up with a video call from Maya. In the background, I could see a bright, modern lab space, with papers and models scattered across a large table. "Dad, I have to show you something," she said, tilting the camera toward a scale model of a skyscraper. "This is my design. My team is submitting it to an international competition." I could hear the excitement in her voice. The same thrill I got when I walked a finished job site. Aris leaned in from the couch. "It's beautiful, Maya. Strong lines. Perfect balance." Maya beamed. "I've been here 6 weeks, and I already feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." After the call, Aris turned to me. "She is never going to make her mother's mistakes." I nodded. "She's too busy building things worth keeping." And that's when I realized it. Our greatest victory wasn't cutting Chloe out. It was giving Maya a life where she would never need to let someone like her in. By late August, Aris and I had settled into a rhythm that felt effortless. Mornings started with coffee on the deck overlooking the rolling hills. Afternoons were for work. Her in her home office reviewing blueprints. Me coordinating projects on video calls. The evenings were ours. One Friday night, Aris brought 2 glasses of wine out and sat beside me. "You know, this is the life we used to talk about, back when everything was chaos." I looked around. The warm lights glowing from inside. The steady chirp of crickets. The absence of anyone or anything trying to tear us apart. "Yeah. Took a while to get here. But we did it." She smiled. "We built it." Chloe's name hadn't crossed our lips in months. Not because we were avoiding it, but because she was now irrelevant. A ghost in a story we had finished telling. What mattered was here, within these walls. Safe, quiet, and ours. And every single day, I made sure it stayed that way. Some people destroy, and everyone else pays the price. Chloe did both, over and over. I refused to fuel the fire. I let it burn itself out, far away from anything I cared about. Instead, I rebuilt. Not on the old ground where the cracks still hid beneath the surface, but on a new foundation. One I poured with intention, reinforced with boundaries, and kept free from the corrosion of second chances. Maya thrives because we built something she could trust. Aris and I stand because we never let the past dictate the blueprints. And I sleep easy, Because I know the door we close will never be opened again. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Strength isn't in fighting back. It's in walking away, locking the door behind you, and never, ever looking back. It isn't cold. It's survival. And it's why my life now stands taller, stronger, and untouchable.